The hunting grounds of Vethra Prime were considered sacred by the Kethvi, a sprawling jungle moon where the apex predators of 17 star systems had been seeded over centuries. It was a trophy world. A playground for the galaxy's most dangerous species. No human had ever been brought here as prey and survived longer than 6 rotations. Lyra Vera had been here for 43. Zyrex Thorn leaned back in his command throne aboard the orbital observation platform, mandibles twitching with something between amusement and irritation. He was the leader of the Kethvi Hunters Guild, 8 feet of scaled muscle, 4 compound eyes that could track movement across 300 meters, and a lineage that stretched back to the first hunters who had tamed Vethra Prime's predators rather than fled from them. He was not accustomed to being made to look foolish. "Report," he said flatly. His lieutenant, a wiry dross named Sketh, pulled up the tracking display. 12 biosignatures. All guild hunters. All stationary. All dead. She moved through the Shriekwood at night, Sketh said, his voice carefully neutral. Took Gorvin first, single strike to the gill slits. He never made a sound. Then the twins, Veth and Veth Prime, who were supposed to be guarding each other's backs. He paused. She put them down simultaneously. We have no idea how. Zyrex studied the display. 43 rotations ago, the guild had received what seemed a routine commission. A human female, mid-20s by Terran reckoning, had been flagged as a Deathworld survivor. Some minor noble wanted to see if the stories about humans were exaggerated. They usually were. Except Lyra Vera had arrived on the drop shuttle already cataloging the vegetation through the viewport, and when the ramp descended and the suppression collar was locked around her throat, she had looked at the jungle and smiled. Not the smile of someone brave pretending not to be afraid. The smile of someone who had just come home. In the undergrowth 3 kilometers below, Lyra moved. She had shed her original jumpsuit on day 2 after it snagged branches and rustled too loudly. She wore strips of it now, fiber wrapped around her feet to mask scent trails, woven into her hair to break up her silhouette, pressed against wounds that had long since stopped bleeding. The jungle had tried to kill her in the first 12 hours, the same way Earth's jungles had tried to kill humans for 200,000 years. She had learned from Earth's jungles. Vethra Prime was trying, bless its heart. She had a mental map of the quadrant built entirely from sound and airflow and the way different insects fell silent when something large moved nearby. She knew where the Kethvi hunters positioned themselves. They favored high ground and used infrared, so she moved through the thermal vents near the geothermal ridges where her body heat blurred into the background noise. She knew their communication clicks. She had learned them by listening. She had started clicking back, sending them in the wrong direction, turning them against each other in the dark. She was not particularly angry at the hunters. She understood them in a distant, clinical way. They were predators who had never encountered something that was simultaneously prey and predator, something that ran not because it was afraid but because running let it choose the terrain. But she was very, very tired of being hunted. And she had decided it was time to finish this. She's moving toward the extraction beacon, Sketh said, genuinely confused. Our extraction beacon. The one only we know about. Zyrex stood up slowly. How, he said. It was not a question. It was the sound a being makes when the universe has rearranged itself around a fact they cannot process. We don't know. The encryption. I know what the encryption is. How did she crack it? Sketh was quiet for a moment. Hunter Prex left his wristcom unsecured when she got him. She had approximately 11 minutes with it before we triggered the remote wipe. 11 minutes. 11 minutes with a piece of guild-encrypted hardware and she had extracted a beacon coordinate. Zyrex looked at the biosignature map again. 12 hunters. All dead. And one small, unaugmented, unmodified human female walking directly toward the one place she absolutely should not know about. She's not running, he said slowly. No, sir. She's never been running. The realization settled over him like cold water. She's been hunting us. Lyra reached the extraction clearing an hour before dawn, which meant an hour before the guild hunters who were definitely following her expected her to arrive. She had already been there for 2 hours. She had used that time well. The first hunter, a Kethvi named Brix, built like a tank with thermal vision and a monofilament net, came in from the north as expected. He found the snare line Lyra had rigged between 2 root clusters at exactly his knee height. The line was braided from stripped vines and a wire she had salvaged from Prex's wristcom. When it caught him, the counterweight, a stone she had spent 40 minutes finding and positioning, swung from the canopy and removed him from the equation with a quiet thud. The second came from the east. He was more careful, sweeping low with a scanner. He did not look up. Lyra had been in the canopy. She dropped, used his own momentum against him the way her grandmother had taught her a version of judo in a kitchen in New Nairobi, and he was unconscious before he hit the ground. She zip-tied his hands with braided fiber. She wanted witnesses, not a body count. The third, fourth, and fifth came together, a flanking formation, professional, coordinated. They swept into the clearing and found it empty. Then they found the message she had carved into the bark of the central tree with a sharpened piece of Prex's wristcom casing. I know you're watching from orbit. Come down and talk. Or I start sending your hunters back in pieces. Lyra. P.S. I have Brix. He's fine. He's embarrassed, but he's fine. Zyrex descended in the personal shuttle himself. He told himself it was because this required his authority. He told himself it was a tactical decision. He did not tell himself the truth, which was that in 40 years of hunting across 19 star systems, he had never needed to know what something was, the way he needed to know what Lyra Vera was. She was standing in the center of the clearing when the shuttle landed. No weapons visible. Hands loose at her sides. She was covered in 43 rotations of jungle, mud, leaf stain, dried blood from wounds that had healed, fresh dirt from whatever she had been doing before he arrived. Her hair was a structural element at this point. She looked like the jungle had grown her. She looked at the shuttle. She looked at him when he stepped out. She tilted her head slightly. Took you long enough, she said. Zyrex had faced down apex predators on 6 worlds. He had never felt the specific sensation of being assessed the way this human was assessing him. You wanted to negotiate, he said. I wanted to talk. She sat down on a root, unhurried, like she had all the time in the world. You're going to stop hunting humans. Not just me. All of them. Zyrex laughed, the Kethvi sound for it, a sharp percussive bark. And why would I do that? Because, Lyra said, you've been watching me for 43 rotations, and you've lost 12 hunters. I'm one person. An augmented. No weapons except what I made. She looked at him steadily. I'm not special. I'm just from Earth. And Earth made billions of us. The clearing was very quiet. We adapt, she continued, her voice conversational and terrifying. We have always been prey. We are very, very good at it. And the thing about an animal that has always been prey, she let the sentence sit for a moment, is that it never stops learning how to turn the situation around. Zyrex looked at this small, filthy, unaugmented creature who had spent 43 rotations systematically dismantling his guild's finest hunters and leaving them alive specifically so they could tell the story. He thought about the 11 minutes with an encrypted wristcom. He thought about the snare lines, the canopy ambush, the carved message. He thought about the smile on her face when the drop ramp had opened. You've been planning this since you arrived, he said. Lyra Vera smiled again. Same smile as before. Patient. Unhurried. Ancient in a way that had nothing to do with her age. I've been planning this since I was 12, she said. Earth teaches you that. You plan. You adapt. You outlast. She stood up, brushed dirt from her knee with a gesture that was almost casual. The question is whether you want to keep being a lesson, or whether you want to be something else. Zyrex Thorn, leader of the Kethvi Hunters Guild, stood in the extraction clearing of his sacred hunting world and made the only decision that made any sense. He sat down across from her. "Talk," he said. And Lyra Vera, Deathworld girl, reluctant prey, deliberate predator, talked. The Kethvi never hunted humans again. In later years, when young guild members asked why, the elders would simply say, "We tried once." What happened, the young ones would ask. "We learned," the elders would say, "that there is a difference between an animal that has no weapons and an animal that does not need them."